Let there be light. Hi, I'm Kent and welcome to Turn a Wood Bowl. Today we're going to talk about lighting. Yeah, lighting. Well, you figured we had to eventually get to lighting, right? After all, I'm trying to share with you guys everything you need to know about turning wood bowls, both on this channel and my website and in my courses. So eventually we had to talk about lighting. All right, stick with me and I'm going to share with you a pro lighting tip that is going to definitely improve your wood bowl turning. You're not going to want to miss. And I'm going to share with you what type of light fixtures I use. First of all, let's talk about lighting. What's the big deal, right? Light's a light is a light. Well, not really. I have a pet peeve about lighting, and room lighting in particular. My pet peeve are the rooms that have a single light in the middle of the ceiling, and that's it. They are probably the worst type of lighting that you could ever use for anything. And I guess my pet peeve stems from my childhood, because that's what I had in my bedroom growing up, was a single light fixture in the middle of the room. And let's think about this for a second. Why is it such a big deal? Well, if you're facing the light and you're trying to do something like read, then you're looking straight at the light and you've got this bright light source in your eyes and it's not lighting the reading material. If you turn around, the reading material might be lit, but then you've got your back to the light and there's a good chance you're creating a shadow on whatever you're trying to illuminate. So it's just not good. And it's a general light source for a room. It's not horrible. It can be used. Now, the next step up are multiple light sources in the ceiling. They're okay, but they're still not great. Why? Well, we're basically just throwing this cast of light everywhere and it just floods out the room and makes the room seem bright. But it doesn't actually help us with what we're turning. So what we really need is we need a good task light. And as the name implies, a task light lights the task that we're doing. It's really that simple. The task light ideally should be able to move and be located right where you need it and stay there. The lights I use are fantastic because they stay in place. When I position them and relocate them right where I need them, they stay. And that's a function of the gooseneck or the mechanism inside the lamp. The lamps that I use are Moffett lamps. I love these. Now, they came as an option with my lathe, but you can buy them individually, and I'll put a link to these in the description below, and everything that we talk about in this video is in the description below. And actually, that's the case for all my videos. You can look in the description and see links to all the products I use. I am not sponsored by Moffett. I am simply sharing with you something that works really well and it makes a difference in my turning, and I want to share that with you. So you might want to check those out. What makes these so great is they have the flexibility to get anywhere you want to locate them and they stay there. The only time that I've ever had a problem with them moving or vibrating is when I have my lathe speed up too fast and I have a unbalanced piece in the lathe that is vibrating. And in that case, the entire lathe is vibrating, and well, guess what? My lights are actually attached to my lathe, so of course they're gonna vibrate and they're gonna move. That's my doing. It has nothing to do with the lights or the fixtures. These guys stay in place all the time. As a matter of fact, Moffett Lighting makes the majority of their lighting for the medical industry. So they're not going to make a product that's really flimsy and just kind of flops around over time. These guys have held up really well for me. Now I say plural, I actually have two lights. For the longest time I turned with one light. Now my lathe has an optional lighting arm and I chose to get that. And that arm has the ability to put two different lights on it. At first I figured, well, one light will be fine. And one light was really good. But the second light adds dimension and perspective. We are able to see with our eyes and with our mind and understand depth when we have multiple light sources. Our brain can calculate that something is closer and farther away from another thing. And when we have multiple light sources, that helps. With one light source, it can be a little tricky to get into different locations. If you can't afford two, that's fine. One light source is ideal. Now, this light that I'm using actually has a multiple option mounting kit, and it has different fixtures. What's really cool about it is it actually snaps into place, so you can remove it very easily and move it to a different location. And there's mounts, there's like a screw mount that can go into the wall. It can put it in the bench next to where you're working, and you can snap the light in there. You could put it on a post or on a stand, and it just gives you a bunch of different options. It makes it really convenient. If you can't mount it to your lathe, then try to mount it to a stand next to your lathe. Now, we're going to talk about why positioning and being able to move the light around is so important in just a moment, but I also want to show you another place where you really want good lighting in your shop, and that is at your sharpening station. Now, a light at the sharpening station is really important because you want to make sure that your bull gouge is sharp right up to the top of the cutting edge. That is what you're looking for, and until that little area is nice and smooth across there, you're really not sharp. So you want to be able to see that. But here's another trick, is you can use this light to look down the side of the contact of the bevel and the wheel. You want to do this obviously with the grinder off, and you don't want to be doing this, putting your head down close to this with the grinder on. But what you want to do is with the grinder off, you basically bring the bevel edge in the jig configuration and make sure that they're meeting exactly. And the one way you can tell this is put the light behind that. If you're seeing any light come through the gap between the bevel and the wheel, then you do not have the angle set up and matching. This is really important because if you don't do this occasionally, your bevel angle is going to start drifting and you're going to have different bevel angles on your bull gouges and you probably won't even know about it. I have an online course all about tool sharpening and tool shaping, and that has to do with changing the bevel angle of your bull gouges for one, and we use this light there in this exact manner to make sure we've got the angle just right. If you want to check that out, go over to my website, turnawoodbowl.com, and click on courses at the top. Just keep in mind, it's a great idea to have a really good light source at your sharpening station as well. And I'll put a link to that lamp in the description below. Okay, here's the pro wood turning tip when it comes to lighting and turning. What you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure you position your lights for the best angle so that you can see what you're doing, but you can also see what's happening with the wood surface. Now let's back up and look at a different aspect completely unrelated to this for a second. In photography, if we have somebody that has wrinkles on their face and they don't want their wrinkles to be featured, then what we can do is we can front light them really well. And what the front light does is it comes in and floods all of the areas, the high spots and the low spots with lights, so we don't see the wrinkles as easily. And that's kind of a really cool, clever trick. Unfortunately, if we have ceiling lights all over our shop, they kind of go around and flood in our bowl surface. And if we've got some tool marks or some rough edges that need to be worked on, that flooded light that's bouncing all over can just fill in all of those shadows, so we might not see those edges very well. Now, on the other side of the photography spectrum, if you have somebody that has wrinkles and it's really interesting and you want to feature those wrinkles, then what you do is you use side light. You come at those wrinkles from the side. So now each wrinkle is being lit from one side and is making a harsh shadow on the other side. And that makes those wrinkles pop out and it makes them really dramatic. And that can be cool as well. Just depends on your subject. Some people don't like that. Now, if we translate that to the wood bowl, what we can do is we can actually position a light so it's shining right down the side of the bowl. And if there's any tool marks, little high spots or low spots, kind of like wrinkles, they're going to get lit from one side and shaded on the other side, and you're going to be able to see them really well. And this goes for both turning when we're using the bull gouge or if we're cleaning up an area, and it goes for sanding. When we're sanding, we can see those tool marks and we can see when we've leveled out an area. Just by moving the light and shining it right down the side of the surface, you can find those little imperfections very quickly. And then you can address them and take care of them, and then you've got a nice smooth surface. So that's your pro tip. Take your light and use it as a tool to help you see where there's issues with your surface. Now, one other thing you want to keep in mind with the lights that you're using is You want to use a light source that matches natural light as much as possible. And what do I mean by natural light? It needs to look or feel like daylight outside. And I found that the soft white lights work best for me that way. Sometimes they're a little bit different and they kind of vary. It has to do with the color temperature of the light bulb. Now, I'm using 100-watt equivalent bulbs in my fixtures, and these are plastic LED lights that have a plastic outside coating. These lamps have a metal cage on them. I don't like to use those because it gets filled with shavings and stuff like that. The bulb itself is plastic. If it gets hit by debris, it's simply going to break and stop working, and it's not that huge of an issue compared to the old glass light bulbs. So that's what I use. And just keep in mind, you want to get a color temperature that is close to daylight. And what that means is it shouldn't have a color cast to it. It shouldn't have like a bluish tint, or it shouldn't look pinkish or yellow. It should feel like daylight. And the reason you want to do that is you want the wood on the lathe to look as close as possible to the way it's going to look in real life. If you're using a light bulb that has a blue cast to it, for instance, and you're doing different things, and maybe you start adding finishes to it thinking you're going to change the color of it and do something like that. But in reality, once you get that off the lathe and you get it out into daylight where you're going to be seen most of the time, it may look completely different. So it's just nice to have a light bulb color temperature that is very similar to what you're going to see in everyday life. So just keep that in mind. You really don't want to color cast with your light bulbs. All right, hopefully this helped you see lighting and wood turning a little bit differently. Yes, we need good light when we're turning, and we can actually use that light as a tool for making nice, smooth surfaces on our bowls. So check that out. Now, if you've learned something from this video, or if you're going to add lights to your setup, leave me a comment below and let me know what you've got going on. And be sure to like this video, as all of my videos. Click that like button, helps a lot. I greatly appreciate it. Check out my website, turnawoodbowl.com, where I actually have an article all about lighting there as well, and tons of other information about wood bowl turning. All right, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and happy turning.